swept. The one result that English Rugby League sought to avoid at all costs in this Ashes series just gone. And after I spent the last 3 weeks absolutely crashing out, I finally had the chance to step back and review that series as a whole. And the more I view it with my head over my heart, the more I can't escape the conclusion that was anything other than a 3-0 result ever realistic? With the Ashes now locked in to happen every 4 years, it's worth having a look at this year's competition and trying to figure out why it fell so far short of so many people's on-field expectations. Let me take you back to this time 10 years ago, November 2015. Hello by Adele was top of the charts, but way more significantly for global culture, Jonathan Thurston had just kicked the Cowboys into premiership glory in Golden Point against the Broncos. Dan and Kemp, if you're watching this, sorry not sorry for the reminder. Anyway, England Rugby League were hosting New Zealand in a 3-game series which they won 2-1, which, given the international season that we just saw in 2025, feels like an absolute world away. The side that England had to choose from that series was a healthy mix of genuinely very high quality NRL and Super League talent. England internationals playing on Australian shores included the likes of James Graham, Josh Hodgson, Gareth Widdop, and both George and Tom Burgess, with Sam on his little hiatus in rugby union. All of those guys at that point were players who were either in their prime or still had their prime ahead of them. You then pair that with the Super League talent available at that time, and we're talking genuine Super League legends. The likes of Sam Tomkins, Ryan Hall, James Roby, Sean O'Loughlin. Guys who the Australian audience watching might have only heard about in passing, but who will genuinely be spoken about in Super League folklore for generations. And not to mention the youth in the side. 21-year-old winger Joe Burgess was just coming off a Super League win with Wigan and would go on to make the Super League Dream Team at the end of that season. He had also just secured a 3-year deal to move to the 3-time minor premiership winning Sydney Roosters the following year. 21-year-old halfback George Williams led the side around and would go on to win Super League Young Player of the Year later that season. He'd already played in one Super League Grand Final in what was his first genuine season of first grade and would go on to make the following 2 in the years that follow. If he was to be the future of English Rugby League, it looked to be in very good hands. Their centres were 24-year-old Leeds Rhinos legend Callum Watkins and 22-year-old John Bateman. This was a side where genuinely elite caliber NRL players were paired with legends of the Super League with exciting youth coming through at the same time. Everything looked to be going in the right direction. But you contrast that with their side today, and it is a bleak comparison. When you look at the NRL talent in it, Herbie Farnworth sticks out like a sore thumb. To me, he is the best centre of the world, and at age 25 could genuinely retire as one of England's great all-time players. But aside from that, while there is genuine quality in the likes of KPP, Morgan Smithies, and AJ Brimson, we're not talking about guys who are of the same legendary status as those who came before. We're not talking about guys who are genuinely among the best in the world in their respective positions, like the way that James Graham, Josh Hodgson, and the Burgess brothers were. Now, from a Super League perspective, there's certainly very serviceable players there and players who have Super League winning experience, but we're still talking about a notable drop-off from what was there before. While the likes of Jack Welsby, Mikey Lewis, and Jez Litton do regularly tear it up in the Super League, that quality has been really exposed over the last few weeks. And there are two sides of the coin as to how well both England and Australia performed in the Ashes series, both of which, to me, are cause for concern for England. The effort that they showed in the games was actually kind of commendable, in my opinion, and I think particularly in Game 2, they actually won the physical battle. I think they contained the Aussie side for all but 10 minutes of that game, and in fact, Cam Munster agrees.
True good, mate.
Oh, sorry, well played. Hey,
True good.
You were a better team in the second game. It's just like a 10-minute period.
Yeah.
Same with Game 3, where the 30-8 scoreline did not reflect the balance of that match. The score was 12-8 with 18 minutes to go. It just got away from England in the closing stages. But at the end of the day, a loss is a loss. The other side of that coin is how well the Kangaroos performed, which was not worth writing home about. They didn't complete at even 70% across any of the 3 games, and really at many points looked to be doing things at a canter. I honestly think that whether it was conscious or subconscious, they realized after Game 1 that they could win this series rather comfortably while playing well within themselves. I'm not saying the Kangaroo tour was a holiday, I'm sure they trained very hard, but those boys were not 100% locked in. The concern there for England is that if they had somehow managed to deliver a higher quality, the Kangaroos would have simply ratcheted their effort up themselves and exceeded that. So, with England simply nowhere near the standard they have to be at to match the Kangaroos, the question is, why? We don't often talk about the Super League here in Australia, and I think that a result of that is that many Aussie fans wouldn't necessarily know the numbers that are involved with the Super League over in England. Their salary cap is 4.2 million Australian dollars plus 2 marquee players on top of that. That value is just over a third of what the NRL salary cap is, and it does happen over in England that clubs don't even fill that up. Just purely based on that, it is obvious that higher dollar values will attract higher quality players. High quality rugby talent in England will pick union over league every day of the week due to the higher wages, higher publicity, and higher standard. That, conversely, isn't an issue that the NRL really deals with all that much, being the premier rugby code in the country. Additionally, the size of the junior pool is an absolute fraction of what we have here. While rugby league in Australia has a home in major urban areas like Sydney and Brisbane, and even sort of secondary cities like Townsville, Newcastle, and Canberra, the same simply isn't true in England. Leeds, Wigan, Bradford, and Hull are all decently sized cities with a decent rugby league presence, but even in all of those places, the competition with soccer is strong. Places like St Helens and Warrington are home to only a couple 100,000 people, while places like Leigh and Castleford are home to only tens of thousands. That is an extremely limited pool of juniors from which to draw talent. Then you compound that with the fact that lower quality systems tend to fail to get the best out of the talent that they have at their disposal. Put it this way, I don't think it's a coincidence that the guy who is by far and away the best English player is a guy who moved into an Australian system as soon as he was out of high school. Access to high quality coaching is so important. And it was something with regards to the Super League that I touched on Bloke in a Bar a couple weeks ago. When you want to talk about systems, which is what you're alluding to in terms of developing players, I'm looking at a list in front of me of 17 coaches who have won the Super League. 5 of them are from England, 11 Australia, one New Zealand. In the NRL, we have I think an issue where there's not standardized coaching across the whole NRL. You've then got the Super League that are taking on Australian coaches, and they're the ones finding success. It's a pretty terrible indictment on the availability of coaches in England and the quality of those guys. So in the end, is it all that surprising that their players aren't of the same caliber? Here's what I will say though, and this is one of the truly great unspoken successes of this Ashes series just gone. There was a real appetite for rugby league shown across those 3 games. 60k in Wembley, 52k in Everton, and a sold out 20k in Leeds. That London one being particularly impressive. England is still very much caught up in the class system. Rugby league there is very much caught up in those class divides, and that has pretty much kept it out of London entirely. With the talk of the NRL's interest in purchasing a controlling stake in the Super League being an ever-growing story, I think the Ashes will have actually proved pretty encouraging from a business standpoint. And it does seem like more and more English fans are embracing the idea of the NRL coming in and sorting things out. What that will do, provided that the NRL genuinely do act in good faith and are proper caretakers of the game over there, is open them up to the expertise and resources that are available to rugby league organizations in Australia. A possibility that genuinely does have me optimistic for the game's future over there. To tell you the truth, with the rise of rugby league in New Zealand and across the Pacific, I do think that an intervention like that could be the only thing that maintains England's position in the rugby league world. And that might seem dramatic off the back of back-to-back wins against Tonga and Samoa in recent years, but the logic and reasoning in this video applies. The trajectory is there to see. There are still high potential players coming through for England. Kai Pearce-Paul, who I mentioned earlier, is only 24 and is developing into a pretty high quality NRL back rower. Mikey Lewis is only 24 years old himself and has just taken Hull KR to their first ever Super League win, and while I do think that his Ashes series was rather poor, I'm of the opinion that he wasn't utilised anywhere near properly. He's still a young and exciting half, and I do think that his best is yet to come. And then you've got Junior Nsemba, the man who I've been ringing the praises of for a while now. He's a 21-year-old back rower for Wigan who knocked back NRL interest last year before inking a long-term deal with the Super League club. He's already a cover star of Rugby League 26 and is a guy who I genuinely think, if he continues to apply himself, could be in that elite category that I've alluded to so many times in this video. Those and others are the green shoots that are showing in England. The question simply lies around whether they can get the systems and expertise in place in order to get the best out of those players. And as an honorary Pommy in Australian rugby league media, I genuinely hope they do. International Rugby League needs as much genuine competition as possible, and we can't afford to lose England. I'm fascinated to see how they respond, and I'm certainly going to be keeping my eye on it. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you later.